Hi, this is Shanna Mann, and this is the mind map of my life management system. And for part one, I'm going to show you my task management methodology. So, obviously, the first thing you're going to need is a good task management system. And I used GTD for a long time, and now I use the Tao of Awesome, which I think is a lot better at rewarding the right aspects of getting things done, but that's what I do, so whatever works for you. The first thing you can see is I've divided my tasks into recurring tasks and novel tasks. Recurring tasks is where you get the most leverage early on. You optimize them, automate them, and stick them into a bulletproof reminder system, and you've effectively freed up, I'm going to say 20 to 60% of your brain capacity, depending on how much stuff you have to do that you're committed to. So you want to optimize and automate. And so I use SOPs for a number of reasons. The first is that when you write them, you get dead clear on what you're doing and why. A lot of the time, you've never really thought about whether you've optimized the system or not. The second is that it makes delegation a snap. And the third is that when you do your semi-annual review of your systems and processes, like you do, you can see that there's been drift. Drift is pretty much inevitable, and it's really helpful to be able to see it in order to gauge whether it's just easier to scrap the SOP and start over, or if you can just tweak it to bring it back to where you're at. So I hope it's clear that SOPs are not for everyday use. They are reference material. When you write them, you've largely internalized the process, but for complex procedures, you're going to want to create checklists. And I have written a fair amount about checklists, so I won't go over that again. But the short form is checklists are another way of preserving your brain's all-important computing power. Now, it's not enough to optimize your recurring tasks. You have to schedule them. If you don't schedule them, you're going to spend, I would say, more than, well, let's be honest, I'm kind of a tight ass about this, but you're going to spend way more time than you ought to just deciding whether or not this is the best time to do your tasks, or whether you can let it go a little bit longer, and then you're going to worry that you've let it go too long, blah 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 blah. Pick a schedule, stick with it. I use Remember the Milk almost exclusively because it syncs with my GCal, and that way when I'm scheduling stuff in GCal, I can click the little check mark at the top and see the stuff that I have scheduled to do that day. So all of my duties, the stuff that I can't get out of, I've committed to, but that aren't actual appointments, are all in the same spot. And to me, that is just the most awesome safety net there is. And that is its own separate system. So you schedule everything that's recurring on a calendar date. So things like how often you clean out your fridge. I have checklists for writing blog posts for my blog and for following up with clients, so on and so forth. Stuff that you just really need to check off. You don't need to devote a whole lot of creative effort to doing. But not everything fits in RTM, so you're going to have to devise a different trigger for certain things. So, like for instance, I do a load of laundry every time the hamper gets full. The hamper being full is my trigger, but changing sheets occurs on a schedule dictated by Remember the Milk. Different example. So every time I come home from running errands, I enter the receipts because I am anal that way, and it makes my accountant love me. But it's way too much drag on the system for me to write a note to myself, enter receipts. So the trigger here is more complex. When I get home, I empty the car, I put everything away, I take my water bottle and my book and whatever out of my purse, and I take my receipts out, and they're in their own special receipt pocket, so they're not mixed in with a bunch of other junk, and they get sat on the corner of my desk. And the next time I sit down at my desk is very small. The next time I sit down on my desk, there is the receipts taking up valuable real estate on my desk. And if that weren't enough of a trigger, within my eye line right behind my laptop is a checklist. And the first item on the checklist says open overhead expenses and household budget GDocs. And when they're open, the next step is self-evident, and there's never irritating piles of scrap paper all over my desk. So that's a bit of a complex trigger, and it takes a little bit of work to develop them, but it's well worth it. So you can see my life system is extensive. I've spent quite a bit of time graphing it out. The reason that you do it this way is so that you just take the load off of your brain. Your brain is really good at creative problem solving, and less good at remembering procedures precisely every time. So just let it do what it's good at and outsource the rest. So this has been outsourced to a mind map. So I think that everybody I'll show you my map here. So I think everybody's familiar with the topic of the idea of an idea garden, or penning projects, or however you figure that out. I have a master to-do list, which is known in getting things done terms as the ubiquitous capture device / inbox. I also have a separate projects list, and this is the thing that everybody gives me a hard time about. Navigation is an issue here. This archived projects and resource manual, or the documentation binder as I call it. I got the idea from Fly Lady's Control Journal, and if you don't know, Fly Lady is a cult figure in the household management world. She has a huge website full of step-by-step guides to making your house spotless and organized at all times, and business owners could do worse than following her methodology. One thing you might want to check out as a resource for that is Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited, which is more business oriented, so it won't screw you up. So some of the things you might want in your resource binder: completed projects and instruction where to find them, the data. This is because when you do a project, sometimes you just do it and it doesn't turn into a recurring task. So you can either just do it and forget about it, or you can do it and just keep a record of it. And if it's not surprising, I tend to keep records of things. It also contains your standard operating procedures because, as I said, it's a reference. You don't need to, be flipping through it every single day. If you do, make a checklist. So I think of the general reference as what I would give to somebody if I got hit by a bus tomorrow and I was in traction. And I would say, look, go into the binder and that'll tell you everything you need to know. It might be overkill, but it works for me. So here are some things you might want in the binder. So emergency contacts, where to find important documents. Passwords are a good thing. You know, I know some people keep them on their phones, and there's management software and stuff like that, but yeah, I like paper copies of things. List of achievements and awards. This is something that gets updated in the weekly review, and I will make another video about the weekly review because the weekly review is the glue that makes things all go together. This is one that everybody laughs at me about. The Householder Book of Days. I've been a homeowner for some time, and I am anal about things like maintenance records, warranty information, phone numbers for technicians, because there's just nothing more annoying than sitting on hold for 20 minutes in order to find the technician in your area. Other things that are useful to have. Reference info. This is the sort of thing that you got the information and you probably don't have a use for the information, and there's nowhere really obvious to store it, but you kind of want to hold on to it. So the name and number of the contractor that you liked, that did a great job on your fence, the person in the visa office who was so helpful when you called, numbers to phone when your wallet gets stolen, that kind of thing. Basically, this is all very personalized, but this is the sort of thing that I put in. The binder can be virtual. I'm not an Evernote user myself, but I think Evernote would work really well for that. But I prefer a physical binder because, like I said, who's going to log into Evernote to find this important information when you get hit by a bus, At least the binder they can pick up and be making calls while they're sitting next to your bed. Yeah, I know. I have a macabre state of mind. Anyway. But this is really reference material. The thing that is important is the weekly review, which ties the active projects in with the idea garden and the archive tasks. And it goes directly into your task management system. So the next video will be on the weekly review that ties everything together. Hope you liked it.